Have you ever felt like you were completely shutting down, trapped inside your own mind while the world kept moving around you? Maybe you've seen an autistic loved one completely withdraw, go quiet, disconnect, and you weren't sure what was happening. This could be a silent autistic meltdown, an internal implosion just as intense as an explosive outburst, but much harder to recognize. And that's what can make them so dangerous. Let's go. Welcome, my stars of Orion. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Orion Kelly, that autistic guy. I'm all about providing validation and support for autistic people and their loved ones. So what is a silent meltdown? Now, when most people think of an autistic meltdown, they imagine a visible explosion. Things like crying, yelling, lashing out. But meltdowns don't always look that way. In fact, a silent meltdown happens internally. So instead of an outburst, the person completely shuts down. They become unable to express their feelings. On the outside, they can seem frozen, withdrawn, blank, even fine. But inside, it's a raging storm with nowhere to go. It's basically like being trapped under a weighted blanket of stress, where every movement, every word, every thought becomes impossible. And the worst part, no one else may even notice you are having a silent meltdown. Let's talk about why silent meltdowns can sometimes be even worse than experiencing an external one. So an external meltdown is overwhelming, but at least it signals in some way to others that something's wrong. The chaos forces a response. But with a silent meltdown, that distress is hidden. The person suffering might be in just as much pain, if not more, but without any external validation or support. So think about it like this. If someone screams, people react. But if someone just stops talking and disappears into themselves, people assume, well, they're fine, or they just need space. So that can mean silent meltdowns can actually last longer and cause more emotional damage, leading to things like chronic exhaustion, autistic burnout. Because what's happening is no one's stepping in. No one's offering assistance or support. Just because something isn't visible doesn't mean it isn't happening. What does a silent meltdown actually feel like? Okay, it's different for everyone. Imagine being inside a sealed bottle. It fills with pressure. The heat, the noise, the intensity inside keeps building, but the cap stays on. You can't scream. You can't cry. You can't even tell anyone what's happening. That's a slight insight into what a silent meltdown feels like. For many autistic people, once we reach a certain level of distress, expressing that can feel unsafe. So the brain locks everything down. It's a survival mechanism. It's nearly impossible to ask for help when the brain has detached, has shut down, has basically rebooted. So people around you might think you're in control because you're quiet. In reality, we're not quiet, we're drowning. And unlike an explosive meltdown, which at least releases some sort of tension, I mean, it's an external manifestation, right? It's an outburst. A silent meltdown keeps all that stress trapped inside. Instead of exploding, it's creating more pressure, causing long-term emotional exhaustion, and frankly, even physical pain. So why do silent meltdowns happen? Well, silent meltdowns don't just happen out of nowhere, just like all other periods of dysregulation. They often are the result of being unsupported, being unheard, being dysregulated. Many autistic people will try to express their discomfort or their overwhelm early on with warning signs. But if those warnings are ignored, dismissed, or misunderstood, their distress will continue to build until our brain shuts down everything as a last resort. And here's the really painful part. Autistic people do many things to avoid meltdowns, shutdowns, burnout, right? We can stim echolalia. We do things to help us re-regulate ourselves. These are the signs to look out for. Of course, when they're not met, when they're not seen, identified, when someone doesn't step in to support us, it can lead to things like meltdowns and shutdowns. And what happens is the brain steps in. That's it. I'm out. I'm done. Disconnects, shuts down, restarts, whatever you want. So when someone reaches a shutdown, people around us assume, hey, problem's over. They've stopped complaining, they've stopped stimming, they've stopped doing the weird noises. In reality, though, it's actually worse than ever. See, here's the issue. Society can often see silence as consent. But in cases like this, silence is a red flag. Silence is consent. Any objections? Silence. No objections. Autistic people, when we're silent, in many instances aren't actually saying we don't object to the environment, the people, the situation, the stresses. But without an ability to communicate that to you, it becomes the snowball effect. Any objections? Well, none from that autistic guy, so we're all sweet. Let's ramp it up a notch. All right, Orion, great, but how should you actually respond in a way that actually helps? If you notice someone autistic in your life withdrawing, okay, what should you do? Take it seriously. Observe it. Just because they're quiet doesn't mean they're okay. A silent meltdown is just as distressing as an external one. Don't force interaction, by the way. See, that's the thing. You've got to notice it, but don't force stuff upon them. So our instinct can be to push for engagement. Hey, what's wrong? Orion, talk to me. Hey, Orion, you need to snap out of this, mate. So there's a difference between me saying recognize it and engage and the neurotypical urge to not recognize it, but then when someone's behaving in a way that you don't like, to call them out on it. This doesn't help. It actually skips the most important step, making the environment feel safe. So you need to focus on reducing stress, creating a sense of security. What does that mean? It might mean acknowledging you can see that something might be wrong. They may feel dysregulated, but still saying, would you like me to give you space? Giving them space without any pressure. You could offer non-verbal comfort. You could sit next to them or hold space with them, be a calming presence. You can get their favorite weighted blanket, show them to a quiet environment. So addressing the underlying stressor or stresses, because if we can't reconnect with the world, we're never going to get out of this. And we can't reconnect with the world if the world is still overwhelming us. Oh, God. This is not rocket science, yeah? Let's talk about recognizing the signs of a silent meltdown, because this is a big challenge. Silent meltdowns are easy to miss. They don't look like anything. They don't look obvious. So let's talk about some possible signs. Okay, the autistic person in your life has just suddenly withdrawn from the environment. So sudden withdrawal, silence, a sign. They start zoning out or simply staring into space. Maybe they're avoiding eye contact or interactions in general even more than normal. Maybe they've become non-speaking or they're responding much slower. This is a big one. Selective mutism or just dysregulated, not wanting to talk. The ability to actually respond and process to respond is devastated by a silent meltdown. So don't just think this is rude. No. Becoming silent or not responding or taking ages to respond isn't rudeness. It's actually a sign of dysregulation and a pretty bloody good sign of a silent meltdown. And another sign could be simply shutting down physically. Does that make sense? So what do? Do they curl up into a ball? Do they go all stiff, dead-like? So they're finding ways to shut themselves down in ways that you would think, what is happening here? So you notice those signs, what do you do? Okay, it's about being gentle, checking in gently. So instead of asking direct questions, and I don't know how many videos I've done on this, for God's sakes, support without expectations. Examples. Hey, I'm here if you need me, mate. I'm here. If you need me, let me know. Or, hey, I see you're struggling, and that's okay. Here if you need me. You don't have to talk. I'm not going anywhere. Just letting you know I'm here. Instead of putting pressure, the types of neurotypical reactions, which can be, I'm in no way saying they're not in good faith. They can be heart in the right place. But you've got to look at it from the autistic person's point of view. So small gestures can make massive differences in helping the autistic person in your life feel safe enough to regulate themselves and come back to the reality of a neurotypical world. Silent meltdowns can have a significant impact on the everyday life of autistic adults. They don't just happen in isolation. They affect and are affected by nearly every aspect of life for autistic people. Now, if you've ever experienced them, you know how meltdowns, silent meltdowns, shutdowns, burnout, periods of dysregulation affect you as an autistic adult. But for those that aren't aware or looking for more insights, let's go through some examples. Let's talk about work. For those 1 in 200 billion that actually have a job as an autistic person, they will disrupt your job. So many autistic adults experience shutdowns at work, but they're forced to hide them. This leads to burnout and exhaustion. At work, shutdowns are actually looked at as laziness, or they're very disengaged. They're very standoffish, rude, arrogant, not a team player, stays to themselves. And that's just not what it is. Silent meltdowns can strain relationships, be that with romantic partners, friends, family. They can interpret your withdrawal, your silent meltdown, as rejection or disinterest, when in reality, it's a loss of control and regulation. It's not a choice, and it's got nothing to do with them. It can cause autistic burnout. I've talked about this for years. Repeated shutdowns over time lead to chronic exhaustion, lead to autistic burnout, which make it even harder to function daily. Even small tasks feel impossible. Just part of the many impacts of silent meltdowns. They can also be linked to trauma. Many autistic adults were punished as kids for melting down, for shutting down. They probably were undiagnosed, by the way, which makes it worse, leading their brains to automatically suppress distress instead of expressing it. It can be harder to recognize if you struggle to actually identify emotions. See, many autistic people experience alexithymia, meaning they don't always realize they're having a meltdown until it's too late because we struggle to identify emotions. Silent meltdowns can lead to long-term fatigue. Okay, we talked about burnout, but silent meltdowns aren't just mentally exhausting. They can also cause physical fatigue and chronic stress. Chronic fatigue is common after repeated meltdowns because the body is staying in survival mode for way too long. You can't keep having that caveman reaction, pulsing cortisol through your body repeatedly and expect it to be a good result. If I judge by the amount of times I do that to myself, I can't imagine I've got another 5 to 10 years left to live. Silent meltdowns affect mental health. Many autistic adults mistake silent meltdowns for depression or anxiety, leading to misdiagnosis and a lack of proper support. Silent meltdowns can actually feel worse for autistic adults if you live alone, if you're isolated. Without someone to notice the signs or offer any kind of support, managing shutdowns by yourself can be just about impossible. Certainly very, very hard. And imagine if you are what we like to call these autistic people that do pay taxes, do date, can play baseball. What else is there? Bullcrap stuff. Can get a job, blah, blah, blah. Can go to the toilet unassisted. High functioning. Oh yeah, well, if that's the case, then everyone's just going to assume you're fine. Now you're fine. No worries at all. Bottom line is, many autistic adults who mask well, who are good at that, suppressing autistic traits, are assumed to be fine, meaning their struggles go unseen, all down to this bloody stupid high-functioning myth. Silent meltdowns also linked to executive dysfunction. So sometimes a shutdown happens when the brain simply can't process tasks anymore, leading to this type of paralysis. Executive dysfunction makes it harder to recover because simple tasks feel overwhelming after a meltdown. Remember, Executive functioning is a set of cognitive skills. Autism is a neurodevelopmental condition. Every autistic adult experiences silent meltdowns differently. And the challenges we face because of them vary. But one thing is clear, my friends, they're real, they're serious, and they deserve to be recognized and understood. Have you ever experienced a silent meltdown? What's helped you the most? Your story in the comments may actually help someone else feel less alone. And for more on the topic, check out my playlist, Autism and Dysregulation.